to repair what a doctor said Tuesday night were significant orthopedic injuries to his right lower extremity sustained in a single-car rollover crash hours earlier on a steep roadway in a Los Angeles suburb. Now, as a part of a statement on Woods' official Twitter account, his doctor at Harbor UCLA Medical Center said in part that Woods had multiple open fractures to his lower right leg, had a rod placed in his tibia, and screws and pins inserted in his ankle during an emergency surgery. The statement said Woods is currently awake, responsive, and recovering in his hospital room. Thank God. Stephen A., I'll start with you. What was your reaction initially when you heard about Tiger's accident?
Well, initially, I was scared to death. Considering what transpired last January 26th with Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, and 7 others in that fatal helicopter crash, along with so many, stories involving death in the year 2020 coming into 2021. When you saw the accident, when you saw the truck and the details were not available to us at that particular moment in time, I feared the worst. I was scared to death that Tiger Woods was in a car accident and that ultimately it would prove to be fatal. As the hours went by, and I was summoned to Sports Center yesterday, we got news that came in first from his representatives talking about it was he had incurred leg injuries and he was being operated on. Once you heard that it was about his legs and what have you, the next emotional reaction I had was just relief. The fact that, I know there was people out there contemplating writing his epitaph and eulogizing him to some degree. The fact that we didn't have to go that route, I was incredibly relieved, and I didn't really care too much about his career and whether or not it would be resumed. He is 45 years of age. His best days appear to be behind him. He had accomplished a great many things in the sport of golf, a 15-time a majors champion, 82 PGA Tour wins, recognized universally as arguably the greatest who's ever lived, even though he never caught Jack Nicklaus. The bottom line is that as a golfer, he solidified himself a long time ago as one of, if not the greatest ever. This was about the man, the human being, the father, and just hoping beyond hope that, he ended up okay. And so now that we're hearing about, his leg injury and what have you, the fact that we expect to see him again alive and well and spending time with his family, the emotion that comes to my mind is relief. But initially, to answer your question directly, I was scared to death. I thought that we were going to hear news that he had passed away, and that's what I'm relieved that's not the case.
I was on the air live doing my radio show when this news broke, and you don't want to speculate, so all I could really do is repeat the information at the time that was available at the time. And Stephen A., I felt exactly as you did. My mind immediately, I think as most of us did, went to Kobe Bryant. And I thought, oh, no, come on. And especially when you see the pictures of the car, and the early reporting was that they had to extricate him from the vehicle with the jaws of life, paramedics and firefighters bringing him to a hospital, and a single car accident. You think, please be alive. That's the first thing, survive this. And then when his agent posted that the statement that he was having surgery on multiple leg injuries, I also started talking about, at that moment on air, the fact that, look, you don't know anything yet other than it's leg injuries. But what that does tell you is you feel better than if you hear head injuries or some major organs. And so you at that point, you started feeling like, okay, we're out of the woods in terms of the mortal peril to Tiger Woods. And at that point, your mind starts going to new places. You think, is he going to be okay in his career? You don't allow yourself to go there immediately because you're worried about his life. What's this going to mean going forward? And then, of course, what happened? Tiger Woods in '09 was in a car crash. In 2017, was asleep at the wheel. He was taking medication. He didn't understand the side effects. And so you think, how did it happen? What's the investigation going to show? But the first thing was, is he okay? Is he going to live? Then, what does this mean going forward? And then, okay, what comes of this? Why did this happen? The big takeaway, so to speak, is you're not promised tomorrow. I mean, we're constantly reminded of this. And when I think of Tiger Woods, guys, in my lifetime, he is one of only, I'd say, 3 athletes who stood out, who captured the public's imagination in the way he did. There was Michael Jordan in my lifetime, at least as you know, not as a 5-year-old or something. There was Mike Tyson and there was Tiger Woods. He was one of those guys that loomed so much larger than the game he played in the public's imagination. And right now, I think the main thing is we all breathe a sigh of relief that this was not a fatal crash, that Tiger Woods is alive.
Yeah, Max, just like you, I was on the air doing my radio show and had just gotten into the first segment. And I looked down as my phone started buzzing, even before I was going through Twitter, and saw that one of our colleagues, Adam Schefter, was calling me. And I couldn't understand quite why he would be calling me, even though we're friends and talk golf stuff all the time, because you know, in that first segment of radio, we were talking about Tiger and his interview with Jim Nantz and what we thought that was going to mean going forward. And then as the report came across Twitter and the picture of the SUV came across, my initial thought was just like both you and Stephen A. Smith, and that is it's a gut punch. When you see the picture of that SUV and read that report of a single car crash and him being the only occupant in the vehicle, and the initial report of what they had to use, what they said at the time they had to use to get him out, which proved later to not be true. But when you hear that the first time, that sinking feeling hits your stomach, and your initial thought is, oh no, please not this, not now. And that, which was the same feeling that we had when we learned about Kobe, and that was the biggest fear. And then as the day went on and as the reports came in, you go from life-threatening injuries to limb-threatening injuries. And I started texting back and forth with a friend of mine who was a trauma surgeon in the armed forces, and so was asking, hey, what should I be looking for? What should we be expecting? And then seeing some of, you know, Justin Thomas having to do his presser while this news was coming out, and you could see how emotional he was. And listen, when it comes down to it, there are times when things happen that a person's occupation doesn't matter, and that the only thing that matters is life and family. And initially, when we saw that car and those reports initially came out, that's all that mattered. The only thing that mattered was Tiger Woods' life and his family. And now, thank goodness, we can look back and take a little bit of a breath and go, okay, as of now, life is not in jeopardy. And so it's nice to be able to take that breath and move on from there, because for that initial moment, we didn't have that luxury.
You know, somebody texted me yesterday, and they said to me they wanted to make it very, very clear that they know Tiger well, and they were talking about how he was on his way to work to shoot a series for Discovery Golf when the crash took place. And they emphasized that, you know, they felt it was important that he was working and wanted to be early, that he was quite responsible and professional, and they felt like that message wasn't coming across. I didn't quite understand why they felt the need to emphasize that to me. But I guess what I'm asking you is I'm interested in knowing, when we talk about the golf world, because I know you've spoken to several people in the golf world, obviously over the last 24 hours or so. I'm interested in knowing, you know, just the outpouring of emotion, how it speaks to the change, whatever change that has taken place with Tiger Woods. Can you crystallize for the audience out there, you know, what Tiger Woods was compared to what he is now as a person? Because it seems like it's one thing for the obvious to be put forth. You're happy he's alive and things of that nature. But it's another thing entirely where you see the emotions pouring for him in ways that you never anticipated it would pour out for Tiger Woods, at least once upon a time. Things have changed drastically for him. Can you crystallize that for our audience?
Absolutely, Stephen A. And it goes back to the Tiger Woods that was and the Tiger Woods that is. And he has changed as a person. During our radio show, I was on, and we had Paul Azinger on, and he was talking about the Tiger Woods that he used to compete against and why the young guys now are so emotional. And he said something that really struck me and hit home because of how true it is. And he said, when he was playing against Tiger Woods, Tiger was uncomfortable if you were comfortable with him. The kids now, Justin Thomas, Ricky Fowler, Tiger now is uncomfortable if you're not comfortable with him. And I think that speaks a lot to who Tiger Woods is today compared to who he was before, which is why, with all the young golfers that are on the PGA Tour now, why you see the outpouring from athletes, not even in golf, but in all sports, the outpouring of emotion and prayers, hoping for the best for Tiger Woods. Because the Tiger Woods in 2000 is not the Tiger Woods of today. And I don't mean the golfer, I mean the person. And so the person that everyone loves today is a different person because he's a father, because of everything that he's gone through in his life. It is very difficult, even for the most stringent Tiger haters that are out there, not to root for this guy because of the comebacks that we've seen and everything that he's gone through. As you see now, that hug with him and Charlie when he won the 2019 Masters and there with his mom, that kind of emotion, knowing everything he had gone through and then looking back and remembering the hug that he shared with his dad on that green, that's the guy we now know. That's the guy that we all now appreciate because of the growth of a human being that is Tiger Woods.
By the way, I should mention that that stretch of road where he crashed, apparently the reporting is that that's known locally as a dangerous spot where there are accidents. I just wanted to mention that because I hadn't mentioned it when I said, what will the investigation show? Piggybacking off of that question, Michael, in like movie making, in a script, ideally, the emotional arc of the character matches the action, right? The arc of the action. And in Tiger Woods' case, as you're describing his emotional journey and where he wound up, he won his first major in forever. What was it, 11 years? At the Masters, right? So he'd finally, in that emotional journey, it matched the action of the story. And if he never golfs again, it feels like the 2019 Masters is the perfect ending. Is that something that is being discussed in, have you considered that? Is that being discussed in golf circles? Like, wow,
no,
he got there,
no.
he won the Masters.
No, because it's Tiger Woods. And you have to remember, he won after that as well. He tied Sam Snead's record later. And so that's the one thing about golf. When you look at golf, there is no walk away like John Elway, like you win the Super Bowl and say, that's it. Hey, hats off, I'm out and do the mic drop. That's very rarely, if ever, in golf does that happen because guys can keep playing. And remember, there's PGA Tour champions that is after, 50 that you could go play on. And I know Tiger, wanted to try and compete in the U.S. Senior Open. And if he won that tournament, then he would be the only player to have all USGA trophies in his house in history, which, Tiger loves stuff like that. So as movie-esque as it would have been for him to win that Masters and then just walk away into the sunset, maybe only playing in events with Charlie like we saw him do with the father-son last year, that's not quite how golf works. And so that's also why now you hear golfers talk about if there's one guy who would be able to come back from any injury out there, it's Tiger Woods, because what we've seen him go through before, how he won the U.S. Open in 2008 on a broken leg, how he came back through those back surgeries and, won the Masters. This is Tiger Woods we're talking about, so you never doubt him.
Yeah. Michael, thank you so much for being with us. Always a pleasure.